Welcome to the African Global Insights channel, where we explore global events through an African geopolitical lens. Today, we're going to talk about the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and his meeting at the White House with the president of the United States, Donald Trump. Before we get into that, however, let's look at some background. Let's look at a timeline, because I think there's a little bit more to here than actually meets the eye. On December 29th, 2023, South Africa filed a case at the ICJ accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza under the 1948 Genocide Convention. Now, the ICJ is the International Court of Justice. Let's take a look at exactly what that organization is so that we can be clear. The International Court of Justice is the judicial component of the United Nations, whose primary purpose is to settle legal disputes between countries, which is interesting because we all know that the UN is primarily controlled and influenced by the United States. According to Article 92 of the UN Charter, all UN members are automatically state parties to the statute of the ICJ, meaning they have agreed to the court's jurisdiction and abide by its decisions. The ICJ has the power to hear cases brought before it by member states and to issue advisory opinions on legal questions referred to by UN bodies and specialized agencies. I also want to mention this part. The court's proceedings are open to the public, and its judgments are binding on the parties to the case. Remember that part, because we're going to get back to that later. So on January 26th of 2024, the ICJ orders Israel to prevent genocide, ensure humanitarian aid, and preserve evidence in this case. So this was an order, more than likely something more of a strongly worded suggestion. On May 16th, 2024, ICJ hears South Africa's request to stop Israel's Rafah offensive. Israel called claims biased and false. Now, the Rafah offensive there was a lot of footage, man, and that was really, really hard. Some of the footage that came through was really, really hard to watch. And a lot of it I couldn't watch. It was really brutal. But the ICJ hears the South African request and basically, kind of took their time answering that request. On October 28th of 2024, here's where it gets good. South Africa submits a 750-page ICJ memorial with over 4,000 pages of evidence on alleged genocidal acts by Israel. South Africa came with the receipts, they came with the evidence, and they made a great case and covered all their bases. So in this respect, they did a great job, in my opinion. On November 21st, 2024, the ICC issues arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. Now, this is not directly linked to the South African ICJ case, but it is aligned with its broader advocacy. As you see, it wasn't the ICJ who brought the case, it was the ICC. The International Criminal Court, ICC, is a permanent and independent criminal court established to prosecute offenders of serious crimes in the international community. Specifically, the ICC is intended to prosecute the following crimes: genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. The ICC is meant to serve as the last resort when the courts of sovereign states are unwilling to prosecute. Therefore, the ICC is complementary to national criminal jurisdiction and does not supersede it. Additionally, the ICC serves a different purpose than the International Court of Justice, which resolves conflicts between nations. So, people, as we see here, the International Criminal Court is the one who issued the arrest warrant, and they have the jurisdiction to do so. And it seems as though they had the will to do so. So, when I look at the ICJ, it only settles disputes between member states. Palestine is not recognized as a state or a country. So, so this is a legal action between two parties that are South Africa and Israel. Palestinians are not Israelis, so they're not going to get a legal remedy under Israel. And they're not South Africans, so they're not going to get a remedy in the International Court of Justice under South Africa. So the only thing that the ICJs can do is to give advice and render legal opinions, and they can do so only for member states. So I don't really understand why South Africa brought this action to the ICJ. In my humble opinion, this is the wrong venue. The correct venue for this charge against Israel is the International Criminal Court, based on what I read here and based on what their mandates are. But the International Criminal Court not only had the mandate to prosecute crimes of genocide, they actually had the will to do so, to the point where they issued arrest warrants. Now, there's not been any arrests made to this point, but at least the arrest warrants were put out there. So at least we have that, if nothing else. Now the ICJ, unfortunately, has been dragging its feet, and it's been giving Israel all kinds of time. And in that time, thousands upon thousands of people in the Gaza Strip have been killed. And this is really unfortunate, but this is the way these entities operate. So as we see here, Israel granted 6-month extension to file response in genocide case at UN court. This is with the ICJ. So this year, in April of this year, the International Court of Justice extends the deadline for Israel to respond to the accusations. And they extend the deadline to January 12th of 2026, people. And I guess they're saying, hey, we're going to give you enough time. Maybe you can kill off everybody in Gaza. And then from there, then this whole thing would be mute. I don't know what this is. This is a travesty. This is an absolute travesty. For this to be going on, but this is the way they operate, like I said. So let's move forward to this year. Trump orders cut to funding for South Africa over land policy and ICJ case against Israel. This is it, folks. This is the bottom line. This is what this whole nonsense is about. It's not really about these farmers, and I think they know that there's no genocide going on in South Africa, but this is some get back. This is Israel's get back at South Africa for bringing them to court over the genocide that's pretty apparent to everyone on this planet, just about everyone on this planet. So this is a little get back. And Trump actually said that this was the ICJ case against Israel was part of his reason for cutting the funding, $440 million in funding. Now that brings us to this recent debacle. So, on May 21st of 2025, Trump confronts South African President Ramaphosa, repeating false white genocide claims, citing articles about killed farmers and unlawfully taking their land. So Ramaphosa refutes, noting most murder victims are black, and really he shouldn't have had to do that. This was ridiculous on so many fronts. Why was he there anyway? Well, he was there because he requested a meeting with Trump, and from what I understand, he wanted to discuss things like Starlink and other business issues, economic issues, probably begging for them to return some of the money that they're now pulling back from the country. You know, this comedy show that happened at the White House was an embarrassment for all parties involved. However, Ramaphosa has the most to lose from this debacle. Trump has no shame and is almost expected to embarrass himself on a daily basis. But what Ramaphosa showed was weakness. He went in there showing all his teeth, skinning and grinning, you know, and it was just an embarrassment on the world stage for South Africa. This did not play well in South Africa, from what I'm understanding, and politically, he was damaged. But to what extent, I guess we'll have to see. Uh, in my humble opinion, he should not have traveled to DC and instead issued a statement like the following. The charge of genocide against another country is a very, very serious charge, and is something that should not be done lightly, nor do we take such charges lightly. To be clear, there is no genocide happening against farmers or anyone else in South Africa. However, if you strongly believe that there's genocide happening in South Africa, then it is your duty, speaking to the US President Trump, it is your duty to take this matter to an international court. Let us both present our evidence in front of the whole world and let the court rule on this charge. If you do not take this very serious charge against South Africa to court, we will consider this matter settled. Then he should have just dropped the mic and just walked away from the podium. Now that's how you handle this kind of thing, in my opinion. Do you think Ramaphosa should have traveled to DC? What do you think the political fallout from this debacle will be in South Africa? Let us know in the comments section. As always, I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for tuning in, and I am out.